Your app can get into problems when you launch UI from other threads, such as closures. For example, you might have an app that is going to ask for permissions for things like photos, notifications, or location data. The system usually handles those, but you might want to be even more exclusive on what to use and use your own alert. In this tip, I'll show you how to launch an alert from Closure. I'll use a slightly modified exercise file from the iOS and watchOS app development notifications course I have in the library. If you haven't seen the course yet, notifications need permissions. And in that exercise file, I show you how to set up permissions. Since the demo app requires notifications, if the user prohibits notifications, I want the app to tell them that's a problem. If you go to the viewcontroller.swift file, I made an alert method, access denied alert. For that purpose, I added two actions here. The first is an OK action, which will do nothing but dismiss the alert. I also made a settings action, which will launch the settings app so the user can change the notifications. I'll use the method I wrote in an earlier tip to launch that. I'll use this alert in my user permissions. I have two actions in my app that send notifications. And let's go up top here to see those. I've got schedule pizza and make pizza. Before they do, they check if they are allowed by using the get notification settings method. That method runs a closure. In that closure, I add the code to run the alert if denied or not determined on both notifications. And so here we got the add error alert here, and I'm going to replace this with self. It is a closure, so we need the self, and access deny alert. And I'll do the same thing for make pizza. So now we've got an alert. I'm going to go over to my phone here, my simulator, and just to make sure this works right, I'm going to go ahead and erase all content and settings, and go ahead and hit erase. Give myself a minute or two to let this reboot. And once that's ready, I'll go back here and run the app. I get a permissions alert from the system, and I'm going to go ahead and hit don't allow. And I'm going to scoot this over a little bit so that you can see something. And I'm going to go ahead and schedule a pizza. And you see we get our alert that says Huli Pizza needs notifications to work properly, but they're currently turned off. Turn them on in settings. So we get our little warning that tells us that's a bad idea. But what I also want you to notice, more importantly, is this down here. You get this message, Huli Pizza. You got a whole bunch of error messages here, but the big thing is cannot be called with copy equals no on non-main thread. And you'll see it doesn't run just once, but it runs twice that way. And it gives you a whole bunch of error messages like this. Okay, that's a real problem. It's actually doing it again here. Why are we getting so many of these? It's because you're running a UI thread of an alert in a non-UI thread. So I'm going to stop this for a sec so we can talk about this. So let's look here at the make pizza one. This self access denied alert is in a closure. Closure runs on its own thread and not the main thread. That's the whole point, is so that you don't have to stop and wait for things for the user interface, or stop the user interface either way. So that's a separate thread. But I want to run something that needs to be on the main thread, which is user interface. In this case, an alert. And so what I need to do is put this back on the main thread in order to get rid of those error messages. Okay, and a lot of bad things can happen if you just, this didn't happen in here, but a lot of bad things can happen if you leave those error messages. A lot of times what you'll find is you'll get weird errors that you cannot find, and it's because it never did the assignments properly. And so this is really important to make sure that you get things that are UI on the main thread. Fortunately, it's relatively easy to do that. It's just one statement. It's relatively easy to do that. I'm going to put a space in here. You'll see there's something called dispatch queue. And on the dispatch queue, there is a singleton called main. And there is a method async. And that has a bunch of code in it. And I'm just going to take this and put it in there. And so what this has done is it said on my main thread throw this into it. That's all that code says. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go up back here to scheduled pizza. I'm going to put that in there. Okay. Okay, run again. And since we still have access denied, I can just go ahead and run this again. I'll go ahead and schedule a pizza here. I get my alert, but I don't get any error messages, which is exactly what we want. And this actually, we could set it so that we can go here. You go to settings and turn the notifications back on. We'll go back here or dismiss it. Okay, I'm using an example from a notification here. But anywhere you plan to call an object on the main thread, such as presenting an alert or changing a label, but doing so from a closure, make sure you assign the object to the main thread before doing so.